I throw that in there. And we're gonna go over all the waivers today. There's 5 of them, and we got some great videos and guest speakers today. And then I am also thrilled to say that I have a new co-host with me, Tanika. You may be familiar with her. She co-hosts CAC with me, and
Honey, could you turn the music
aboard.
off, please? God damn it.
All right.
Good morning,
Could you turn the
everybody.
music off, please? Turn the music off.
All right. And we're gonna go get started with the home and the community video, and just to go over basically why we're advocating for home-based community services. So let's get that rolling.
Medicaid can't wait. Many people with disabilities are forced to live in institutions with no control over their lives, segregated from their family, friends, and communities. For over 70 years, the ARC has led the fight to close institutions and for funding to support all people with disabilities to live in their homes, in their community, where they want to be. The good news is there is a way to make this happen. Medicaid, a government program, does cover supports for people with disabilities to live independently in their homes while getting the supports they need. It's called Medicaid Home and Community-Based Services, HCBS. HCBS helps people with disabilities with everyday activities like working, getting around, taking medications, cooking, cleaning, bathing, dressing. So what's the problem? Right now, the Medicaid law says that the government must cover the high costs for a person with a disability to live in an institution. But the government does not have to cover the lower costs for a person with a disability to live at home in their community. It's a biased and outdated system with too much money going to the wrong place. Because of this, almost 850,000 people with disabilities across the country are on waiting lists to get HCBS services, sometimes for up to a decade, so they can get the support they need at home, not in an institution. Let's fix this together. The ARC needs your help to say, Medicaid can't wait. Everyone deserves to live the life they choose. Join us at thearc.org/Medicaid can't wait.
So
All right, what a great video that was. I appreciate the brown lady in the wheelchair. I cannot find that anywhere on the internet for any kind of video. So that was awesome. Thank you so much for that video. So we are going to get to our first speaker of the day. So we have Josie Schindler from Pierce County. She is a self-advocate who lives independently, and she's going to talk about the waiver that she uses to be able to do that. So I am going to pass it to Josie, and I am going to slow down for the interpreters.
Tanika, Josie doesn't seem to be in here right now.
Okay.
Josie, if you're here under a different name, can you let us know?
All right, well, hopefully Josie is on the way. If she pops in, we will have Josie talk about her waiver. Do we have...
Doreen's not here.
Doreen's not here. We're going quick. I know we got Noah.
Yes, Noah, are you ready to move up?
Are you ready, Noah?
Yeah,
All
this
right.
is Noah. Hi, everybody.
All right,
I
we're gonna
am
pass it over to Noah.
I am ready to go, and then
All
I
right.
can talk, and Tamika or Taylor or Diana just give me a sign when I have like a time limit and
Okay,
condense, or if anybody joins, I can pause and come back.
perfect. Well,
Um,
welcome, Noah.
I'm just gonna do one thing real quick.
Oh, and let me
Everybody-
introduce Noah. So Noah is here. He's going to be talking about the developmental disability report that was put out. It's called Community Protection. It's talking about the Community Protection Program waiver. So he is here to talk about that and explain that. We're going to move him up a little bit and move some things around. So hopefully if our other guests pop on, we'll have them on later. If not, Noah, you got more time to talk about your report, which I'm sure you would love that more time. So I'm going to pass it over to Noah. Thank you so much for being flexible.
Thank you. And then I can share a PowerPoint if that'd be helpful so you folks can see it. Just have to get that permission.
You're good.
Great. Just doing one thing real quick. No, I should be able to. You should be able to see my screen with the PowerPoint.
Yep, we can see you. You are good.
I'm going to share the screen too, because that will be the best for you to see. Okay, thank you. I'm Noah Seidel. I'm use he, him pronouns. I have black hair, white skin, black glasses. I have a little beard going on right now and a black sweater on. And I have like a DD Ombuds color background, like white and green. So I'm going to talk today about community protection, which is one of the waivers. And do you all see the slide, the slideshow right now? It should say DD Ombuds power and duties.
Yep,
Yes.
that's what we see.
Yeah, looks great, Noah.
So just a little background for people who don't know about the DD Ombuds. Our role was created by the legislature, and it's in RCW 43.382. Our work is to inform people about rights and services, review procedures of state institutions, visit people where they live, and speak privately to people receiving services. So we take complaints from individuals, from family members, guardians, service providers, and we always try, if we can, to work directly with the individual. We protect confidentiality, which means that if somebody is working with our office, we don't tell anybody else about it unless we have a release. We investigate and resolve their complaints. We monitor DSH's procedures and practices, working mostly with DDA, and then recommend systemic changes. So that brings us to why our office got involved looking at the community protection waiver, which is one of our state waivers. So the community protection waiver was created in 1996, and this was created after a tragedy happened where there was a fire, and it was created to about these concerns that were happening with people who were getting DDA services. Some were charged but not convicted of crimes that were a threat to public safety. So this was a way to make it so people with getting DDA services aren't going to jail or prison. They might have done something that needs monitoring and needs teaching on not to do that. In 2006, in spite of reported concerns, the legislature expanded community protection to include people convicted who served their time and people who were never charged with any crime. So it had like a small scope. And then in 2006, it expanded. And one thing that we looked at is people who never committed a crime or were charged with a crime. And now young people are now most commonly referred to the community protection program. So those were some initial concerns. Diana, do you want me to omit people if it pops up? Or somebody else doing that?
Yeah, there's somebody else that's taking.
Okay,
it from
great.
that.
Thanks, Noah. That's nice of you. There should be several of us to be able to do that. Thank you.
I saw folks waiting. So
Noah, you're muted there.
oh, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, I think I got it. So what is community protection for the people who are in it? So things that people told us when we asked them, what does community protection mean? And they said, if I don't tell a lie for a year, they said I can play video games again. I want my cell phone back. They took it last year and said, until I can be appropriate, I'm not getting it back. I complained and they said, sign out if you don't like it, it's voluntary. And then another person told us, my case manager searched my room and took my movies and video games. They said I had no choice because I'm in community protection program. So those were some stories and complaints that we were receiving that made us want to look at community protection. And why else are we doing this? The DD Ombuds values the disability justice framework that was created by Sins Invalid. And a part of their framework is leadership of the most impacted. The community protection penalizes young people before they had an opportunity to learn necessary skills. Also, American Indian men and Black women are overrepresented in the community protection program. The systemic problems identified in community protection are found in other DDA programs too. Listening to and addressing the concerns of people in community protection can improve DDA services and many others. So using like our disability justice framework and our racial justice framework, we thought it was important to look into community protection on how people are being served. So an introduction to community protection. People in community protection DDA labels them as dangerous or violent or sexual deviant. So that's in people's treatment plans or the plans that put them into community protection. The community protection program is DDA's most restrictive program, which means that people in community protection have 24-hour supervision, line of sight supervision. There are some people who can be a little bit further away from their staff, but for many people, they feel it's very restrictive. If labeled eligible for community protection, you must agree to the community protection services. If you don't agree, you can't go on any other DDA waiver. So later on, people will talk about the other DDA waivers, like the core waiver, basic plus, and those waivers also offer residential services. But if you're eligible for community protection, you can't decline it and say, oh, I want this other one instead. So you must agree to the surveillance and the restrictions. So that's a part of your agreeing to the program. If you don't agree, then you're out of compliance of the program. So DDA says that community protection is voluntary, like their other waivers. But if you don't have a choice, it isn't voluntary. As of May 2022, there were 382 people in the community protection waiver. People agreed to therapeutic community protection services that treat them with dignity and respect and provide in the least restrictive way. People in their plans are unclear on how to get out of community protection. So part of what the DD Ombuds does is attend treatment team meetings and other meetings with people on community protection. And there are people who ask us to do that because they don't understand what they need to do to graduate from the program. more people have left community protection than graduated. So community protection, you're supposed to have graduation goals. And once you meet your goals, then you graduate, and then some people go to the core waiver, some people go to other DDA waivers. But we're seeing that more people are just leaving the program than graduating. DDA reports, and they are taking steps to address these concerns. We are continuing to review the community protection receivers and make recommendations. People in community protection need to see a path out of community protection. So our initial recommendations are offer resources to avert young people from community protection. So that could be like educational services, seeing counselors, doing other services that you can fix some of the issues that you might be having without going on community protection. Also, stop penalizing people who decline community protection. So if it is voluntary, then what does that mean if you don't want to be on community protection but want a DDA waiver? Ensure people have a clear and person-centered path out of community protection. Create clear timelines for DDA to respond to the DD Ombuds request for documents and allow DD Ombuds direct access to electrical access to records. So part of the issue that we found was it took us longer than we anticipated to get records about community protection and people on community protection. And some of the records seemed to be like backdated or not filled out correctly. So if you're putting somebody on a restricted program, you would hope that all the documents were completed correctly and that person needs to be in this restricted program. And then DDA leadership should set a clear expectation regarding the community protection program. So then we did a follow-up, and maybe I'll take a quick pause to see if there's any questions.
I have a question, Noah.
Yes.
I have friends who are actually in that program, and I know that the people in that program want to go to night design prom. Is there a way that they can do that?
They want to go to a prom? Like a
Yeah.
So that's a good question. So that would, you would have to see what is in the person's treatment plan and what restrictions they have. And going to things like a prom, going to things like the ARC community centers that some counties have, or things that we do see in restrictions for some people. Like some people are not allowed to be places with children. Some people it says they're not allowed to be places with vulnerable adults. So that, vulnerable adults means other people with developmental disabilities. So I think is that you, Courtney?
Yes.
So Courtney, I think like what you're talking about is a real challenge that people face is they're not able to be in the community that they're a part of because they're on community protection and because of their restrictions. So you'd have to look at like each person's restrictions and what it says about if they're allowed to go or not. It would have to be a case-by-case basis.
It looks like you have some questions here in the chat for you, Noah. Courtney, did that answer your question?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. So it looks like Megan in the chat says, what is DDA doing currently to make improvements?
Yeah, so I have a slide about that that I can pull up. I'm going to skip down and then I can kind of answer that question with a slide. So what steps have DDA taken? And DDA are still like this PowerPoint is from the summer, so it doesn't have all the current information. I know DDA has a new person in charge of community protection. Her name's Destiny, and she's doing some reviews and some trainings and reaching out to providers. The DDA completed an internal audit through risk management and identified regional inconsistencies and recommended changes. So like people's plans, the documentation was inconsistent among the different regions. So they were looking into that. They're making care web changes to include referral form to track why people are referred to community protection and prevent lost forms. It's kind of like what I mentioned. And reported an internal person-centered action task force is reviewing community protection policies. So they're bringing together stakeholders to review the policies. Other things that DDA are doing, reported that headquarters is training regional staff for consistencies on restrictive procedures and to ensure policies are followed. They're making changes to provider contracts. So people in community protection, they see somebody who kind of oversees their program. And for many people, those are what they call SOTPs. So they're like sexual deviant counselors. And they're changing on what kind of providers can do that because not everybody in community protection are there because of sexual behaviors. They're establishing a QA group to address blanket restrictions. Blanket restrictions are like restrictions that everybody has in community protection, and that's not supposed to be the case. It's supposed to be person-centered and individualized, but there's some restrictions that seem like everybody has them, even if they don't, maybe shouldn't have them. And then developing training specifically for community protection case managers, so they'll have real-time resources. But we also think that DDA like could do more and it needs to do more. Some of the things that we are still seeing is retrain DDA staff and DDA staff that DDA client rights are the minimum rights guaranteed. So there's federal requirements over these restrictions that if I had like way more time, I would go into like the nitty gritty of these federal requirements, but we want to make sure that community protection follows these federal requirements. Retrain DDA staff and contractors not to take away rights that people are already have. Ensure choice of visitors, activity, and privacy not controlled by service providers. So like kind of like Courtney mentioned, people have concerns about what activities they can do, if they can have visitors, family over, friends, significant others. Some people aren't allowed to have relationships. Ensure that person-centered service plans are person-centered and according to the federal laws, the rules. Ensure people have a safe route to complain about community protection. Sometimes when people make complaints about community protection, that becomes like a restriction or seen as a behavior that they also need to have addressed. So asking questions or having complaints isn't something that needs to be like fixed out of somebody, right? Like as self-advocates, people are taught to like speak up. So if you're speaking up, that shouldn't be seen as like a bad behavior. And then we want them to review, change policy 5.15 to ensure reviews before taking away rights. So community protection does take away people's rights, so they should be doing, looking at the reviews. I hope that answered the question.
Hey Noah, I see that Doreen, our first speaker, or one of our first speakers, is here, and she needs to present at 10:30. Is there any way we can maybe wrap this up? I hate to interrupt. I'm sorry. I just
No,
I know
totally.
Advocacy Days kind of started off, but interesting. But I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I can take a pause there, and then if we do have time, I have a few more slides, but if we don't, that's also okay. I know what it's like.
Yeah, thank you so much, Noah. And like I said, very informative stuff. And definitely, if you could actually, if there's a copy of this report, it's very informative, awesome. I know I would like it myself, and I'm sure others would as well. But yeah, if we have time, we would love to resurface back to you. This has been very helpful, and I always appreciate your reports and being here. So thank you so much. And then with that being said, we are going to we're going to have Doreen hop on and let her speak, and then go from there. And she'll speak on the TEFRA waivers for Washington State. Are you ready, Doreen? Hi.
I am ready. Sorry about my technical issues this morning, but I've arrived. Thanks, Noah, for making space. Appreciate you. I have a little time. I'm operating on a break today. So thanks for creating space for me, and really informative, good information, Noah. I want to know more. Hi guys, I'm Doreen Bidford. I'm mom to the amazing Tamara behind here, who's with me in spirit today because she's at school. And I am here to talk about the TEFRA medically fragile children Katie Beckett waiver program. So they've been called by many different names. TEFRA is essentially a tax law that allowed for home community-based waivers to exist. And this is kind of, it feels complicated, but TEFRA stands for Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act. And it created room for the 1115 waivers, which is all of the home and community-based waiver systems that we have across many states. Different states implement this differently. And this year, we've been advocating about this for quite a while for folks who have disabilities but don't qualify for the DDA to have access to Medicaid as a secondary payer and waiver services. Just because you don't meet the really restrictive eligibility requirements of the Developmental Disabilities Administration doesn't mean that you don't have in-home and protective needs. I'm going to share the one pager that came out in the notebook this year in the chat if you guys want to look at that. It tells you a little bit about all of the different states. There's 23 states in all who have TEFRA waivers or programs for children 0 to 18 that kind of expand this. So this year there is proviso language in the budget, which is so exciting. And it's something that we see as progress moving forward. There was a report that came out that was a agreement between the Healthcare Authority and the Developmental Disabilities Administration that basically said, we don't know how many people are out there, so we can't put a financial determination on this type of program. And so they were going to give it some really huge number that would have made it kind of impossible to get past. So we kind of switched gears, tried for a different approach, which is for them to fund 1,000 waiver spots over the next biennium, which is a 2-year period, so that we can see what the need is out there, get a sense of who's out there and who would like to utilize it. And yeah, Stacey just put the legislative report from the Healthcare Authority in the chat as well. And it basically said that they'd need a waiver demonstration to determine what was the need and what costs were going to be. So this year, it's not a bill, it doesn't have a bill number, but there is proviso language in the budgets of both the House and Senate. And we would like to get this proviso passed. So we're just needing education and advocacy to happen to the legislators and to families who might be needing this. And this could include, you know, any person who meets nursing facility level of care in Washington State. It would eliminate a lot of those folks who tend to fall off of DDA services at 10 because they don't have an official diagnosis, so they're waiting for official diagnosis. And it would allow them to maintain services or provide access for a whole group of people who maybe don't fit into the I have a very low IQ criteria that the Developmental Disabilities Administration requires still at this time, and would allow an additional waiver. So provisos are going in the state budget, and they tell people, you know, an agency what to do. So usually all services for children at this time in Washington State are still given through the Developmental Disabilities Administration. And there's a hope that we'll be able to open this up to non-DDA eligible individuals. either who are on a Medicaid program and can access CFC, or who need access to a Medicaid program because they have a disability that's high cost and they're living in a middle income family and it's creating, significant financial stress. So that's kind of the nutshell. My personal reason for this is, I had to do a whole bunch of backflips as a very educated social worker who works inside the system in order to get my own daughter eligible. And she's a wheelchair user with high support needs as far as her complexity with medical stuff. And I just thought, man, most people can't do these gymnastics that I did to get into the system. And I want to find ways to make access easier for individuals and families who need that support early. We know early intervention is so important, and having the services and access to therapy while people are 0 to 18 is so important. Do you guys have questions for me? Like, that's kind of a nutshell. It's complicated, so I'd love to have some dialogue about it with this group and see, what you guys think. If it's something you feel like you could talk to your legislator about, because it would be a huge gain for our state. And there are places, this is a first step, but there are places that actually offer Medicaid buy-in for all people who meet the federal definition of a disability. So if you meet the definition of the federal guidelines for having a disability, and that can include behavioral health, it can include autism without IQ requirements, it can include medical, then they have a Medicaid buy-in program that's sliding scale based on family income. And so I think this is a first step to get the information they're looking for in order to get to that greater goal. I see a hand. I can't tell who it is.
I saw it and then it went away. I think it was
It's me.
Rachel.
This is Rachel
okay.
Dunhauser. Hi, Doreen.
Oh,
I actually think you just answered my question. I was trying to figure out, because this is awesome, hugely needed. And
yeah.
I work with families periodically who this would very much benefit, including one just this past week. And I did some Googling and came upon this. So I was really interested in this program. I think what you just said is you don't have to be financially eligible for Medicaid to be eligible for this waiver, because you could buy it.
So what this would look like is similar to the home community-based waiver with DDA. Is you would determine functional eligibility through assessments. You would be determined a slot would be determined available. You would go through the non-government medical assistance process, just like people do for a DDA waiver, to determine that your disability met the federal definition of a disability. And then it would all be based on the child's income. The family income would no longer be a consideration.
Right.
So it'd be a home community-based waiver, just without the DA eligibility hurdle.
Wonderful, thank you.
And then we got a couple more questions.
Sure.
Corinne Jackson asked, what about if you're in DDA but waiting over a year for a case manager, would TEFRA be something to apply to?
Yeah, I mean, I think potentially it could be a gap. I think if you are a DDA client, you should be being assessed by the Developmental Disabilities Administration. I know wait lists have been long in this post-COVID era with hiring and all those other things, but due to the advocacy of this group, there's now no paid services caseworkers who should be working to get to those faster. If you're still not receiving a service a year after requesting a service, you should definitely be contacting your regional DDA office and asking what's up.
Awesome, thank you. And then Stacy Dim also asked if you can talk about the gaps for families who have kids in a hospital for 30 days who are then eligible for a year, but then something happens then what happens when that year ends? Like,
absolutely. So in our state, we already determined that families who have medically complex kiddos who require being in the hospital for more than 30 days because of, for whatever the medical reason is, because of a crisis, because of a medical intervention, because of a behavioral health crisis, like whatever the issue is that lands someone in a hospital for more than 30 days, they do automatically already get Medicaid as a secondary payer, but it only lasts for 12 months. So we get people home and stabilized with supportive services, and then we take them away at the 12-month mark. And I think that that leaves people really vulnerable, because if they aren't able, to access DDA in that time, then they're kind of left. If there isn't a waiver capacity, or if they didn't meet the eligibility requirements for DDA, as soon as their Medicaid ends at the end of their 12-month period, then they lose their in-home care services and all of the things that were stabilizing them. And then we see them returning back to emergency services and increased hospitalizations. And we're putting people's health and safety at risk. And I think, if this type of program would help to continue those programs and have a waiver program that they can get on. And yeah, if there's a way for them to then become eligible for DDA, similar to how someone can be at home and community services receiving community first choice as an adult, this waiver would allow them to get into Medicaid, access those entitlement services, and then if they wanted to go the further step to additional services under a DDA waiver, they could transition.
Awesome. And there's lots of helpful information in the chat, lots of reports Stacy put in. And I also want to, Stacy, speaking of Stacy, she's got her hand raised.
Doreen, there's a great thing in the chat from Sean pointing out that we have a Medicaid buy-in for adults through healthcare for workers with disabilities. But I wanted to ask if you think that the TEFRA pilot that we're talking about affects adults, or if it's mostly families of young kids.
Affects, I'm sorry, did you say
adults? My impression is that it will mostly affect families that have young kids.
Correct. Yeah. So the TEFRA program and the specific waiver that they are looking at affects children 0 to age 18, because we already have alternate waivers under the Home and Community Services program through Aging and Disability Service. I'm going to say that wrong. Aging and Disability Services Administration, or the AAAs in your county, healthcare, we have that access for adults 18 and over. So they're able to access COPES waivers or other Medicaid programs. And for clients who are eligible for DDA and don't want to use a waiver or another program, or are on a waiver or another program and have gainful employment, there's the healthcare for workers with disabilities to maintain their Medicaid programs.
Thank you.
And I also want to address that Stacy Dim put in the chat about the Healthcare Authority and more information about the pilot for the SIBS waiver. So if you want to look more on that, Stacy put a link in for that. And then yeah, I think is there anything else you'd like to say, Doreen, or share? Thank you.
No, I'm really excited to see some progress forward with this. Very nice to meet all of you guys again and see you.
I think we have
Noah,
one person who has a physical hand raised. So
there you go, physical hand. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Tanika. Hi.
Katrina, hi, Doreen. Katrina, did you have your hand raised there? Were you trying to ask a question? Oh, okay. Never mind. I thought I saw a hand raised. I was skimming through, making sure we don't miss anyone who's not a technology user. So if you need to raise your hand, let us know. I'll see you.
Josie has her hand raised.
Josie has her hand up. Okay, Josie.
I just wanted to say hi to Doreen. I miss her.
Hi, Miss Josie. Good to see you. It's always lovely to come to spaces and see all my friends again. We need to have a get together.
I just wanted to say hi.
Hi.
And I miss you at PAVE.
Hopefully I can do some good work in my new position.
Awesome. And then Malia says it's nice to see you again. Everybody's so excited to see you. That's really awesome. So you've made a great impact on this community. Thank you for speaking, Doreen. And then also Sean put the Aging and Long-Term Support Administration in the chat from DSHS. And then
thank you, as always, Sean, for your wonderful help with acronyms.
And then we're going to have Tanika introduce the next guest speaker if there's no other.
Diana, is that a question for me? What should advocates do now?
might be. Yeah, that might be a question actually.
So right now, you should contact your legislators and ask them to support the proviso funding for waiver spots for this TEFRA Katie Beckett waiver program proposal from the Healthcare Authority, and that this should be included in the state budget, and that there should be some direction about implementation happening as soon as possible. Is that a good call to action, Diana? Is that what you were looking for?
Yes.
And Stacy just put the proviso language into the chat, it looks like. Or Diana just put the proviso language into the chat. So you can say specifically that you want this proviso over the next 2 years. It's not a small bill, but we want the Katie Beckett 1115 waiver implemented.
Anywhere we can get into, right? So
any way we can access more services for our community.
awesome. Thank you, Doreen, and thank you for being there for us and our advocates, and thank you for advocating yourself. Wow, an incredible bill, and thanks for all the helpful words. And then we're gonna have
Thank you, Doreen.
Tanika introduce our next speaker.
All right. Well, I see we are a few minutes ahead of schedule. Do we want to go ahead and let Noah finish? You have about 10 minutes before we have our next person scheduled.
Well, Katrina Davis is on. I wanted to make sure she's got a busy schedule. I wonder, Katrina, do you have a time crunch? Okay.
All right, Noah, you got it. You have 8 minutes.
Great. Hold on, let me get that all situated again. So I thought there was one question that Stacy put in the chat about what happens when folks leave community protection. Like, are they tracked? What services do they get? And people are not tracked. So like part of the issue is like what happens when somebody leaves community protection, like where do they go? Some people go live with their family. Some people get community first choice, so they're still able to get the personal care and they could move into like an adult family home. But most of the time, their service level is higher than what they need and like what they can get served, like say like an adult family home. So like, so you can still get some services, you just can't get waiver services, but it's not tracked. And that's like the one thing is like, there are people that we've worked with where like then gone to some not positive housing because that's the only place that they could afford or live in. So it doesn't seem like it's a great option. So I have a few minutes. So we did a follow-up calls to people in community protection. So we made a plain language version of our report and we mailed it to everybody in community protection. And then we gave calls to people to see if they received the report and we talked to them about it. And the feedback we got during those calls, there was still path to graduation were unclear, not allowed to have visitors, no community activities without permission, not allowed to have privacy, not allowed cell phones, social media, streaming movies. We made these calls during like the height of COVID restrictions. So not having like social media, not being able to have a cell phone for people, it was even more isolating than it was in the past. I mean, we're all on here on Zoom right now, and there are some people who can't be on Zoom. They can't have internet access. So, when the world pivoted, I believe, and we believe that people in community protection, some of them got left behind. They can disagree with services, or there could be like that retaliation, that blowback, or it can be seen as a negative behavior. People are not getting what they signed up for. They think, oh, I signed up, I'm gonna get help. Maybe I did something, like I stole something. I did something that I shouldn't have done. and I'm going to get help, and then I can kind of get on. Kind of like how our justice system is supposed to work, and in community protection, that's not always the case. So I just want to talk about some examples. So Ivanova did some drawings for us to kind of show what people told us. So people feel isolated. They're isolated from their family and their friends. One person said they're not allowed to like touch their family or their friends, like no hand holding. Almost everyone said that no overnight visitors are allowed, and team approval is needed before they can visit friends or family, or their friends or family can also visit their home. Almost everyone said they needed permission to date somebody, and almost everyone said no social media or internet is allowed. Also, like staff control and people being involved in their meetings. So people have treatment meetings every quarter. Most everyone said they needed staff permission and supervision to leave their home, even walk out to get the mail, like go to the front door. Everyone said that almost everyone said that treatment teams must approve community activities, kind of like what Courtney asked about, and sometimes that can take a month. And then people said they are told to wait outside or in another room while their treatment team members talk about them without them. So the people will have their treatment team meetings, and then the team will keep on discussing without them and tell them what they discussed, or sometimes they won't tell them what they discussed. Almost everyone said they must have their community protection staff with them all the time, unless they have an approved chaperone. And then the privacy. So this is a picture that it's like a Christmas card with baby Jesus scribbled out, and this is the real example. We heard about many people in community protection are told they can't look at children or stick figure of children. One person showed us a Christmas card with a picture of Joseph, Mary, and baby Jesus on it. Staff opened the mail, scribbled out baby Jesus before giving it to the person. Another thing, like, you know, the DD Ombuds and the DDC and Informing Families, we made those COVID brochures that we were giving out to people, and there was images that Ivanova drew for us in those to like show plain language, show examples. And there was a time when Tim and I were out doing visits, and we were told we couldn't give out that booklet to somebody because the images in that booklet were not appropriate for those persons' restrictions. So things like that, that people feel like that's a violation, you know, that's a right that they want back, especially, you know, something like a Christmas card or like a DD Ombuds educational material that we created, you know, people think that they should be allowed to have. It's like phone calls are screened, mail screened, and that's something that people experience. So I'm probably at time or about time. I think I talked about the rest of the slides about what steps DDA has taken. And then, yeah, and then let's see. One thing that as we talk about what Doreen was talking about and eligibility, just the last thing I want to quickly mention is that our office can help people if there's questions around eligibility or not getting services. So an example is say like a person, we'll call them Sarah, applied for DDA services for her 8-year-old daughter. Sarah was told by her daughter's case manager that they should schedule a functional assessment in 2 weeks. It's been 2 months and Sarah hasn't heard from the case manager. Then the DD Ombuds then Sarah could contact like the DD Ombuds and submit a complaint. And then what we could do is call the case manager, call the supervisor, find out why the assessment hasn't happened, make sure it gets scheduled. The person should get their assessment, and then we can follow up to make sure the eligibility process moves. Because I think other folks will talk about these waivers, so I'll skip it. But to apply for DDA services, you apply for eligibility determination, request service, and then waiver eligibility determination. So this slide is kind of shows that it's a complex process to get DDA services. There's different assessments, documentation you have to fill out. And then once you get accepted, then you find out they do another assessment to what waiver you'll go to. So there's like a long process that sometimes gets confusing that our office can help if it gets stalled, or, Doreen mentioned that there's a, staffing shortage, and sometimes people unfortunately get kind of lost in that, or if a case manager gets switched positions, sometimes they kind of get, a person might get lost in that fold. So we can just help if that feels like is happening to like somebody or their family member.
And then I have a direct question for you, and we're right at time, so I'm hoping you can answer this one quick. But the question was, who decides or who writes what the people in this program to do can and cannot do? Like, so who makes those decisions on what they can do who are in that program?
Yeah, so a person in community protections, what happens is if you're deemed eligible, then you see an SOTP, and that's also kind of changing in their change to make it so more people can provide that oversee, like a counselor or a therapist, and they work with you and your case manager to decide what your restrictions are, what your goals are. You also do a risk assessment, and it's like through your risk assessment, which is supposed to tell kind of what risk or behaviors you should be working on in a therapeutic manner to then go on to like a different service setting. So it's those folks that you're working with that create the plan and the restrictions, and the person is supposed to be involved in that, but like I kind of showed, like that's not always the case.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your presentation, Noah. If you have any links, I think it was Eric Mathis was in the chat talking about you have it in plain language. So if you have a link to your report, please throw that in the chat. Thank you so much for your time today. And we are going to move on. Taylor, do you want to kick this one off, or do you want me to kick it off?
You can. We're good. You can.
Okay. All right. So next up, we are going to watch a video, and then we are going to hear from Katrina Davis from Seattle Children, Do You Dub? All right. So we are going to watch a video.
Hi, I'm Gary Stobie, neurologist here at UW. I'm excited for you to learn about ECHO Autism Washington. Project ECHO, extension of community healthcare outcomes, is broadly a teleconsultation model designed for common conditions like autism that have a high public impact, require complex management, and Hi, I'm Gary Stobie, neurologist here at UW. I'm excited for you to learn about ECHO Autism Washington. Project ECHO, extension of community healthcare outcomes, is broadly a teleconsultation model designed for common conditions like autism that have a high public impact, require complex management, and for which clinical expertise is limited. ECHO Autism Washington specifically is designed to expand local capacity to diagnose autism and care for autistic people in local communities. Training community-based providers in best practice care and focusing our training on healthcare authority COE, or Centers of Excellence providers, has proven to be a successful approach in increasing access for our rural and underserved populations.
ECHO Autism Washington involves building a community of providers across the state focused on making the diagnosis of autism and providing continuing care for those patients after a diagnosis. In a nutshell, providers present details around a real case from their practice, and the other participants ask questions and provide recommendations around that case. And there's a hub team of experts at the University of Washington who are guiding these questions and providing recommendations as well. Each session also involves a didactic around a very specific topic. The result is that providers learn from their colleagues, and their confidence in diagnosing autism and providing care for these families grows over time as we continue through the program.
I value Washington Autism ECHO because we create much needed pockets of autism expertise throughout the state. It's important to have a family member serving on the Washington Autism Echo because we bring the lived experience and perspectives to the conversation.
I think it's important for individuals who are autistic to be a part of these echoes and help with the training, because they're going to get a lot of different perspective from individuals on the spectrum. And then I always say people with disabilities are their own best experts. I have enjoyed being able to pass on some of my knowledge under that kind of teach-all model.
I was interested in joining the Echo Autism because even though I finished my residency training, it was 20 years ago, and we didn't get a lot of preparation in developmental pediatrics during that time period. So a lot of these things we've had to learn kind of along the way. And this was a great opportunity to learn more about autism specifically and how to help my patients, as well as make the diagnosis more efficiently. I enjoy learning from others. It's a nice way to be able to collaborate with different people and learn from experts in the field who are leading the program, as well as people who work across the state who may have different experiences than I do.
I was interested in joining Echo Autism Washington because I wanted to improve my skills and confidence in diagnosing children with autism. I had done the COE training about a year prior, but was still rather hesitant to make the diagnosis in some children. I also wanted to be able to provide more comprehensive care for autistic children in my own community.
Thanks to your advocacy, families across Washington state now have access to primary care providers with more confidence, knowledge, and increased ability to deliver autism care in their local communities. Thank you.
Awesome. And then are we having Katrina speak for a little bit? Or are we going to straight to Anne from DDA? I just want to make sure.
We're going to have Katrina talk first.
Okay, take it away, Katrina. So
okay, thank you. Is my volume okay? I'm in a kind of a crowded, loud place. Can you hear me okay, folks? Thumbs up. Okay, good. Thanks for having me here today. Stacy and Diana asked me if I could present some information on ECHO, the ECHO project. So I put the link in the chat so you can click around and see the Washington Autism Echoes. You can see the different echoes that are taking place across the state. And so I'll just give you a little overview, and again, put any questions in the chat. You've probably heard about echoes. You know, this has been around a couple years now, and Washington echoes are emerging as a really great way to bring knowledge to communities rather than them having to send their people other places like cities. So it's a great way to keep the care local and at home, accessing their own resources and in their community. So ECHO stands for Extension for Community Healthcare Outcomes. And it's a guided practice, like Dr. Stobie said. It's a model that really is aiming to reduce healthcare disparities, mostly in underserved and remote areas of the state, nation, and world. ECHO is a national or a worldwide model, not just autism, but all kinds of networks that need to connect, like teachers and healthcare providers and mental health agencies. Right now in Africa, it's connecting a lot of the HIV care and equalizing care for HIV. Really big in our rural areas across the nation for all kinds of, like I said, from teachers to medical communities using it for multiple sclerosis, head injury, just getting that expertise and care out into the community. So autism is one of those subjects that, and IDD, I'll use the word IDD to encompass everything. So is one of those topics that is huge, right? And we have these long wait lists for evaluation. And autism took the world by storm, and so did IDD. And what that means is we have these huge wait lists. Three years to get an evaluation? That's crazy. So this is an effort to bring expertise to communities, build capacity. So basically it's a hub team. You got this hub team of expertise, so to speak. The experts learn just as much from participants, but it's usually, we have a self-advocate autistic, a parent, and then it's everything from neurologist, psychologist, speech language pathologist, OT, psychiatrist, any particular expertise for that particular echo. And I'm going to show you a map in a second that'll make this more clear. So that team then is a hub and then we have, you know, ECHO's can have lots of people, and they tune in Zoom style, and we review a case anonymously, of course, and then we talk about it. You know, what resources would you recommend for this? And it really helps the provider presenting, and we all teach and all learn together. So yes, ECHO was funded by the Healthcare Authority, the governor's budget. Thank you for saying that, Stacy. That's important to know. That's where the money came from for ECHO. Yes, and so these hub teams work with these participants, Zoom style, and it's out of the University of Washington, the CHDD or the LEND project you may have heard of. So our job is to amplify capacity, build capacity across the state to better serve our IDD population. And it's not just medical. This uses very much the social model of strength-based, leading with the person's strengths, leading with the family strengths. Therapy it's not always about therapy. It's about identifying what who that person wants to be and what life they want to lead. And I attribute a lot of that to our self-advocates. By the way, we're one of the only ECHOs that use self-advocates. We are very proud of that. We have a very robust self-advocacy team, and Sydney is one of those. Sydney right there on this Zoom call right now. Hi, Sydney. So it's been a joy and pleasure working as a hub team member, a facilitator. I'll just say a couple more things to make this a little more clear, looking to see if there's any questions. I think what might be nice to see now is the map. Do you want me to share screen, Stacy, or let's see if I have. I'm disabled, but if you want to able me to share screen, I will show you the map of what we're doing in Washington with this Autism IDD ECHO project. Okay. I'm still disabled, but if you want to share it, go ahead.
I'm trying to find
this map is good. All the different ECHO projects, and this will be a way for me to explain them. So just so I'm clear, Stacey, are you going to show it or do you want me to? She's doing it. Okay.
I'm working on it.
Oh, no problem. Okay, well, I'll just say this, folks. So ECHO, has anybody heard of the COE, Center for Excellence? This is Medicaid's way of ensuring a level of quality and a level of expertise when diagnosing autism and other intellectual disabilities. So Center of Excellence is, you need to be a center of excellence for autism and IDD to diagnose and be recognized by Medicaid for certain therapies.
Katrina,
so
could I interrupt you a minute? Our next speaker is here and she only has 15 minutes to talk and then she has to leave. So can we have you come back after she talks?
Yes, I'll show my map after she's done. No problem. I can stay on. No problem. Okay. We'll pause right there. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Katrina. We're going to have Anne from DDA speak, which will be very, very helpful. And all right, Anne, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for your flexibility, Katrina, too. Hi, everyone. My name is Anne Vasilev. I am the Waiver Services Unit Manager with the Developmental Disabilities Administration, and I'm here to give a high-level overview of the 5 home and community-based services waivers that are offered through the Developmental Disabilities Administration. Waiver programs are federally and state-funded programs that offer services that aren't available anywhere else. So supports that aren't available through school, through health insurance, or through free resources available to the community that are needed to successfully live in the community. And waivers are offered in place of institutional care for folks who need monthly services to be safe and healthy, and to be able to stay in their homes and communities with their families and friends. In order to be eligible for a waiver, a person has to be a client of the Developmental Disabilities Administration. A person has to have a disability according to the Social Security Act. A person needs to meet financial eligibility for Medicaid. And I will put a note here that children under the age of 18, there's a different financial eligibility for waiver-related Medicaid than for typical Medicaid eligibility. So we find that kiddos may be eligible for Medicaid if approved for a waiver that wouldn't otherwise be financially eligible. So don't, folks shouldn't be hesitant to apply for a waiver because of finances or resources if they have a child that might need help. We encourage folks to apply. To be eligible, a person also needs to meet what we call institutional level of care, or ICF-IID level of care. And a person must be approved by the Developmental Disabilities Administration for a DDA waiver program. And that is based on need and capacity, because waiver programs are capped, but with a certain number of waiver slots that are available. And I'm going to talk about that for each waiver in a moment. And the most important part is that a person has to agree to accept a waiver program. All waiver programs are optional. Okay, so our 5 home and community-based services waiver programs are the Individual and Family Services Waiver, the Basic Plus Waiver, the Core Waiver, the Community Protection Waiver, and the Children's Intensive In-Home Behavior Supports Waiver. The Individual and Family Services Waiver is designed for individuals who are living in their family home, and there's no age limit on the Individual and Family Services Waiver. This waiver is really designed to help support a healthy family environment, and so the services on that waiver are designed for that. The waiver is the amount of funding for services available on the waiver is determined through the DDA assessment, through the person-centered service planning process, and it has 4 different categories. The first category being $1,560, and the highest category for time savings is $4,680 a year. Currently, there are rough estimate, 6,800 folks who have been approved or enrolled on the IFS waiver, and we have approximately 800 slots available. So this waiver is enrolling if folks are interested in applying for the waiver. If you want to request a waiver, the Developmental Disabilities Administration has a service request and information web form that can be submitted, or you can contact your local office or a DDA case manager to request. There's no wrong door for requesting a waiver program, and DDA will help you through that process. There are a variety of different services on all of our waivers. Some of the most popular services on the Individual and Family Services waiver is assistive technology, respite care, which gives a break for the primary caregiver, community engagement, designed to help a person to be able to go out in the community and participate in the way that they want, and specialized equipment and supplies. This can be anything from a weighted blanket to maybe a secondary wheelchair that a person needs for travel, for instance. Then we have the Basic Plus waiver. This is a waiver that's designed for folks who, no age limit, again here. This is for folks who are maybe living in their family home, maybe their own home or apartment, an adult family home or adult residential care, and they need more services than what's available maybe on the IFS waiver if they live in their family home. And the budget structure is a little different here. So you have $6,192 a year for a combination of services, plus an additional $6,000 of emergency funding. So if you go through the $6,192 and maybe you have a change in medical needs. So maybe you sprain your ankle and you need some additional equipment. That additional $6,000 becomes available. Maybe you've had a change in caregiver status. That's another example of where a person could access that additional $6,000 funds. Employment support is also on this waiver, and that's a very popular service. And respite care is separated out from that budget. So there's a separate funding amount for respite care based on the DDA assessment. There is approximately 11,500 folks that have been approved or enrolled on the Basic Plus waiver, and there's approximately 500 slots remaining. So again, waiver is enrolling. So if you're interested, this is a great opportunity right now. We also have, for just time, I'm gonna go through this relatively quickly. We have the core waiver. This is a waiver that is targeted to support folks who have really immediate needs and have a need for residential habilitation support. So this is residential habilitation are supports like supported living, SOLA, group homes or group training homes, licensed staff residential, etc. The core waiver budget structure is broken out. The total cost for most services cannot exceed the cost of institutional care, and employment supports is determined by the DDA assessment, as is respite care. If a person, we have a group of folks who are on the core waiver who live at home with their families. Respite care is available for those folks. We have 4,700 folks that have been approved or enrolled on the core waiver. Again, approximate numbers. All of these are approximate, which leaves approximately 900 slots left available for core waiver. We have the community protection waiver, and this waiver is available for folks who want it, who are at immediate need for supports, and who are working through challenging behaviors that pose a risk to the community, that are identified through a risk assessment for the person to be in need of 24/7 direct staff supervision through supported living or SOLA. There's a blended budget structure on this waiver similar to core. And right now we have approximately 400 folks that are approved or enrolled for the community protection waiver. And we have 50 slots approximately available on that waiver. And let's go ahead and jump into SIBS waiver, our Children's Intensive In-Home Behavior Supports waiver. And this is a waiver designed to support youth and their families when the youth engages in really challenging behaviors and their families are really engaged and on board with participating in a really intensive service planning process across systems. This is using supports through a person's maybe behavioral health benefits through their state plan and waiver services and school district supports. So it's really that wraparound model of support. This is also a blended budget structure with various funding allocations. For time, I'll just go over a couple. $15,000 of an aggregate for a certain set of services, another $6,000 of emergency, a $5,000 carve out for a couple different therapies, person-centered planning and peer mentoring, and another $15,000 every 5 years for therapeutic adaptations, which is a sensory room that can be built for folks that are in need of a safe sensory space in their home. This waiver is currently, there are no slots available, and we have approximately 200 approved or enrolled currently, and that is the capacity of our waiver. So let's see. I want to put in a plug just again for time savings. There are waiver amendments. So our waiver programs are approved by the federal government every 5 years. And anytime we want to make a change to the waiver program, we have to apply for those changes to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And we are in what we call a mid-cycle right now. but there's a few changes that we proposed that are currently posted for public comment. And those changes right now are adding agency provider type for children's stabilization diversion beds. Okay, so it's adding a whole new provider type. Adding that we hope will expand, help with making sure that we've got our providers for those services. We've got formally adding youth exiting DCYF dependency as a priority group for waiver enrollment. And that was House Bill 1061 last session. And we are currently enrolling those folks on waivers already, but we're just getting it formalized in the waiver application in this amendment. And we are adding virtual assessments into the waiver as an option if an individual wants that, and adding agency provider type for alternative living providers for residential habilitation. So again, adding another provider type for folks to be able to choose from for that service. Alternative living is a service provider type for residential habilitation. If you have any comments about those amendments, you can send your comments to waiveramendments@dshs.wa.gov. You can log onto our DDA website, and there's a link in latest news that's that announces the amendments. If you click that, there's also a link to that email, so you don't have to worry about writing the email down right now. So I'm already a minute over time. I'll pause, and I will. I can take a couple minutes for questions, but I will have to run.
I think Diana put the DDA information in the chat, kind of what you reiterated, but does anyone have any questions? Or, Eric says he's curious how DDA is doing, making sure they're complying with the upcoming home community-based service setting rules.
Oh, there is going to be communication coming out from the Developmental Disabilities Administration about settings requirements. And part of that, we're really excited, are going to be trainings that are available to the public that are going to be posted online also, and more resources. So there is a lot of communication coming out about that. Gov Delivery, if you're not already signed up for DDA's Gov Delivery, I highly encourage signing up for that. You get all the notifications and upcoming news that comes out with DDA, but you can expect some messaging about settings within the month.
Thank you so much. Very appreciated.
Hey, Katrina, could you put that Gov Delivery link in the chat by chance, if you have time?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Oh, could you put that Gov Delivery link in the chat by chance? If it's...
I think Taylor was talking to Diana. We'll get that queued up. Yeah, it's okay. Thanks, Anne, so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me to go over the waiver programs. I really appreciate the invite, and I hope you have a really wonderful day today, everybody.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks so much, Anne.
Thank you.
It seems like we have time for Katrina to wrap up.
And then, yeah, well,
Sorry, I got muted. Somebody said, "Be quiet, Tanika."
Well, I was wondering if we could let Josie go just for a couple minutes.
Getting kind of here, and I can't hear very well. I think I just stepped on Diana. Would you like me to finish up? Just take a few minutes here, and I'll finish up the ECHO information. Yes? Thumbs up? Okay. All right. Okay. So I'll just take a few more minutes and talk about ECHO. Sean asked a really good question I want to address about expanding the ECHO model to other disability populations. And I guess I want to stress too that this is really an IDD ECHO. We say autism because that's there's an autism national ECHO, but we're trying to really shift to the words IDD because I'd say 80% of the time a case is well, 50 is IDD, not just autism. So please know that it does address the developmental disability world. Some of the echoes are, well, as you'll see, let's pull up the map. And by the way, Stacy, I have it ready if you want me to pull it up. I'm disabled now, or I can share. Should I do that? Look at this. I'll pop it right on screen. Can everybody see that okay? Okay. All right. So this might be helpful when we're talking about these different echoes. There are a number of IDD echoes going on in our state right now. So the first number that you see, 85, that is a number of providers from all over the state who, in those little yellow boxes, who have gone through the Center of Excellence training and are now wanting to learn more. So they've joined these echoes that meet twice a month, and they discuss cases. They do an information didactic on everything from like autism masking to anxiety to burnout to medications that are commonly used for IDD, for anxiety or depression, all kinds of everything from the medical side to the helping an individual that's autistic or has IDD plug into recreation and meaningful life activities. So those 85 people and growing are working actively across the state to better serve their patients with IDD. So they don't have to send them to Seattle or Spokane. Okay, the next box you'll see is 285 in purple. Those are providers in our state who have gone through the Center of Excellence training. So they are now certified to diagnose and prescribe certain therapies, and it will be recognized in the eyes of Medicaid. So that's kind of cool. We did not have that 4 years ago. And that means a person can stay in their town and get the care they need. The third box, 255, that's the echo that I'm heavily involved in. And we're really proud about this because we have over 255 people from across the state in this echo. It's a huge echo. And these are everything from WISE wraparound providers, DDA case managers, advocates, self-advocates, DDA, like I said, schools, healthcare authority, managed care organization case managers, nonprofits, the ARCs. We have amazing turnout from all over the state. And these folks join this echo to learn about IDD resources, helping parents and autistic and folks with IDD navigate the complex maze. And as we all know, it's not just accessing services that exist. A lot of our job is telling people what doesn't exist. We have so many shortages and barriers right now that part of our job is to help folks out in our community understand what's available, what's not available, and what kind of tips and strategies can you implement to help families access given all the barriers. You folks might not know that right now you cannot find an ABA provider for someone with severe and challenging behaviors. They do not exist. So when SIBS took away behavior supports, these parents are left with no behavior support. So there's a lot of frustration, and this also gives these people a forum to share their frustrations and advocate together. So it unifies everyone, and we send them to the ARC. We go to the ARC. You're upset about this? Go talk to your ARC. And I think that's going to contribute to some really informative, targeted change. Again, our self-advocates are key in this because they work with the providers to share their lived experience. The last two numbers, we have 58 people in an IDD wraparound. That's basically, WISE wraparound. Those are all people that are in WISE, or they might be medical providers or mental health providers or schools. They want to learn how to do wraparound services better. You folks may know that some of our more high needs IDD population were traditionally rejected from WISE wraparound because they don't fit the model. They can't participate in talk therapy. Maybe the person can't actively participate in a way that WISE would recognize in the team meetings. So this echo is about let's target this population and start to serve them in WISE wraparound. So this echo is increasing our WISE wraparound providers to better serve the IDD population, and it's wildly successful. And we're not getting the denials like we used to. Pretty cool. Last one. Medication management is a huge issue for our IDD and autism population. This last echo, 27, those are usually psychiatrists, nurse practitioners who want to understand the medications that are sometimes used for a person with IDD who has got raging anxiety or depression or OCD. So it's about more informed education about medication management. Okay, look at the state. We're all over the state. We're growing. We hope the funding continues. I want to just make a plug that if you have a provider or if you're interested in ECHO, I'll put my email and I'll forward you to the right person. If you know a self-advocate or a parent who wants to get involved, we really want that. So thanks for letting me take the time today. I'm so impressed with these advocacy days. And Diana, Diana, let's just give her some props right now. Look, like, woohoo, Diana, she's working so hard. She works hard, and Taylor, you too. I am
Katrina.
I am just, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today. Thanks for listening.
Well, I just enjoy you, and I enjoy with how involved you've been with us this Advocacy Days session. Like, you've been super involved, and I appreciate your presence here. It's always welcomed and appreciated. Do you have time for a couple, like, it's just like one question maybe? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Michelle Odell, she said, I'm trying to pull up my chat here. It disappeared. All right. She said, is there an incentive for providers in our local areas to add an ECHO credential on their provider page? I believe families would find this so valuable to understand. There are providers in the area that are plugged into additional knowledge. And she also asked, how does a small community start their own ECHO program? I believe that's the question. Yeah.
I am scribbling down your great question. I'm gonna punt that back to our ECHO leadership team about. I love this ECHO credential idea. That is so cool, and I know other ECHOs do it with other teachers do it. So let me look into that, Michelle. Okay, I can't answer it today, but it's a brilliant idea. And then as far as other ECHOs, yeah, I mean, we want ECHO to be, we want it to blow up in Washington, and we are one of the most robust IDD ECHOs in the country, besides New Mexico, where it kind of originated. So, so that was your question. Yeah. Again, what I'll do for you, since I have your information, or I'll put my email in the chat. I think we have each other's, but I will find out who you talk to get that ball rolling. Okay. There's, we want to do a behavior ECHO, like challenging behaviors ECHO. We want to do a self-advocate ECHO. We want to do, there's all these ideas. Why not just throw them out there and let's see what we can do.
Well, that sounds awesome. Love that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Katrina. And yeah, someone asked for your email chat, or oh no, Corinne. Well, yes, I believe we send out. I believe the recording is on our website of the Advocacy Days. Sorry, I was just addressing another question, but thank you so much, Katrina, as always, that you are so helpful to us, and we appreciate you and everything you share. And then Katrina just put her email in the chat, and then last but not least, sorry for the agenda bouncing around today a bit. We're going to introduce our last guest speaker, Josie from SAIL. So let's give Josie a warm welcome and let her share her story.
Josie, can you turn your camera on, please?
Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry. Sorry. Technical difficulties on this iPad. I'm sorry. So I am currently on a DDA waiver, and how I got onto that, well, I was born in Washington. And when I was born in Washington, my parents did not take care of me. So I became disabled. And I was removed from my biological parents at the age of 3.5. And I was adopted at the age of 5. So when they put me in foster care, they did what's called a IQ test to make sure if I was like a normal 3-year-old. I was not. My brother was not. Then at the age of 15, they did another IQ test. I still did not make the requirements at the age of 15. So I got back into foster care because I ran away, and you can't live in a tree. And so went back into foster care at the age of 15. I'm eventually moved to Tacoma, and then I wanted out of foster care at the age of 18. Well, guess what? At the age of 18, I was able to get out of foster care, and they put me in an adult family home. Well, when I aged out at 18 of foster care, they did another IQ assessment on me. And I did not pass. So they said that I was disabled. And I was on a waiver with TDA. It was called the Basic Plus waiver. That's where I started, because I did not live in my own home. I lived in an adult family home. And I was technically, since I was 18, they told me, DDA said I was in a gray area. Yes, I was an adult. I was 18. I was not 21. In 2005, I eventually, once again, ran away, or it was about 2004, ran away again from the adult family homes and boarding homes because I did not like them. And we had to borrow money. I was with a company called Sharon Care House. They were my guardians. They were also my payees. So we had to borrow money from DDA so I could get my own apartment. Woohoo! In 2005, February 14th, 2005, I got my very first apartment. Woohoo! Yay me! That's my first step in becoming in the community, because I felt like I was locked down. I thought that I wasn't in the community living in those adult family homes. I didn't like them. They were very strict rules. I do not like, hey, if you give me a rule, guess what? If I don't like your rule, I might not follow it, because I'm a very strong-willed person. And, I don't want to be home at 9 o'clock in the evening. I might want to come home at 11 o'clock. I might want to go spend the night at my friend's house. I want to go spend the night with Jessica Renner, if she has an extra bed room, I want to crash her couch, I don't want to come home. So you know what? So I left the adult family homes, and I got my own apartment in 2005, and I got onto the core waiver. I also got my own job because I did not like the job coaches. Did not like them. It's not like I didn't like the job that they gave me. Yes, I did. But I did not like having a job coach. I did not like having the manager treating me like I was disabled and I can't do certain things. And we had coworkers that would, wear the wrong shirt. I couldn't do that. I couldn't come into work wearing the wrong shirt. I would end up having a meeting with my manager and my job coach. That was not okay for me to do. So there were coworkers that were new and didn't even know what kind of shirt to wear. I got my own job. Woohoo! Another thing that I did. And then I also lost the ability to have a guardian. I'm now my own guardian. Woohoo! Another step in my direction. Becoming myself.
Josie,
So
can you wrap
I've
up, please?
made a lot of improvements in my life throughout the years that I've been alive, since the time my mom gave birth to me. And people have told me, make goals, be goal oriented. And so I did. I made goals, and I was able to achieve those goals. I showed them, hey, I can make goals. I'm not breaking the law. I'm not going into Fred Meyer's and just taking a candy bar off the shelf or a donut and eating it and shoplifting, or taking a shirt off the shelf and just wearing it around town. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing crimes or anything. I'm just being myself. Yeah, there are rules, there are laws that you have to follow, and I have learned that.
Thank you,
But
Josie.
there are some rules and laws that, hey, if you're gonna say I have to be home at a certain time, I'm gonna say, baloney. I ain't doing that. I'm gonna go see if Jessica has a couch I can sleep on.
You can come crash on my couch sometime, Josie.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, there were rules that I did not like. And so I was able to get my own apartment just by disobeying some of the rules that the boarding homes and adult family homes had. And that's how I got my own house.
Well,
And
thank you
I
so
don't
much
live in a
for-
tree. I don't live in a tree. I
can guarantee Josie does not live in a tree. I get to work a lot with Josie as a self-advocate in Pierce County. So thank you so much for sharing your story today, Josie, on how you were able to get waivers, so you can live independently.
And the other thing is, yes, I actually sued DDA. I was part of a suit to sue them because they were not giving people the core waiver. So I met a awesome lawyer. Her name is Ellie Hamburger. I love hamburgers, man. I love hamburgers. And she's awesome. She's an awesome lawyer. If you ever get to meet Ellie, she's awesome. She helped me become who I am. I don't know if I would have done it without Ellie's Hamburger's help. And Susan Katz at DRW, she's awesome too. David Lord, I worked with him. I worked with David Carlson. I worked with all of them, and they're all great. And they will help you know your rights. I've also worked with DD Ombuds. I've gotten a few adult family homes shut down because they were not doing what they were supposed to be doing. They were not giving, they would give you tell you if you miss dinner, guess what you got for dinner? A bologna sandwich.
Well, thank you so much for all the advocacy
Top
you've been
ramen and a
doing.
bologna sandwich are not very healthy.
No. Well, if you look in the chat, Josie, you're getting a whole bunch of love and thank yous for sharing your story, and people are inspired by you. And Stacy says, we all love Ellie and hamburgers. And thank you so much for sharing your story today, and applause. So thank you so much for being here.
I'm not putting Ellie Hamburger down, but I just love hamburgers.
Oh no.
I know.
We know you're just
I try not to make fun of her name, but it just she's got an original name, and her husband's got an original name of gross, and I'm like, hamburgers are yummy. They're not gross.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Josie. We're a few minutes behind on our agenda, so
And
we're
I
gonna
was
go ahead
able
and
to
move
get,
on.
I was able to go to her wedding. She's like my best friend, and she will
Aw.
never. She is my best friend.
Oh, awesome. All right, we're gonna kick this over. I believe next up is Diana talking about bills.
Okay, so here first up me.
Sorry if I went over time.
Okay, so normally we would go over bills, but I know we've been really short of time today. I will just say that there are no hearings right now. The bills are all now in rules, waiting to get pulled to the House floor or the Senate floor for a vote. You can watch both houses as they debate the bills and the amendments that go on them online on tvw.org, and they will let you know what's being heard right now. So I'm going to leave it at that. And Jessica, you want to do your wrap up real quick?
Sure.
After this briefing, you have many options to advocate with your legislators. You can schedule a Zoom meeting with your legislators, email today's information to them. You can also email your legislators about bills that are important to you and to set up appointments with them. There are no hearings to participate in this week, but legislators will be on the floor. Let's talk about how to get you connected and what's going on in chambers. On the main page at www.legwa.gov, you would click on House Floor Calendar. Once there, it shows you the display boards for both the House and Senate. If they are working, the boards will display the information about whatever bill they are voting on at the time. Otherwise, it will say that they are at ease, meaning they're not working on voting. They may be at ease for the purpose of caucus, for lunch or dinner, or they may be at ease until the next day. When they go in caucus, that means that all the Democrats go into a closed room, talk about the bills coming up and how they plan to vote on any amendments and the final bills. The Republicans do the same thing in another room. Scrolling down, you will see the list of bills that they plan to pull to the floor for a vote. These bills are on second reading. If there is an A in front of the bill number, that means that floor amendments are being proposed. By clicking in the A, you can read the amendments being proposed once the bill is pulled to third reading and is voted on by members. On the right-hand side, there is a column titled Floor Action. If it has already been voted on, you will see that there. At the top of the page, you will see a link that says Go to Senate Reports. By clicking on that, you will find the same information about Senate bills on second reading. When they are on the floor voting, you can go to the main page, scroll down to where scheduled hearings and floor sessions are listed and click on View Video. This will take you to the TVW page that is showing that floor action for voting. Advocacy Day is a project of the ARC of Washington State and funded by the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council. Be sure to join us for future advocacy days. Register for each advocacy day on our website at www.arcwa.org/advocacy-days. We want to make sure you are satisfied with Advocacy Days, so be sure to fill out our feedback form. Your feedback helps us to continue improving and helping your voice to be heard. Let's walk through it together. Start at www.arcwa.org/advocacy-days. scroll down to the smiley faces that say your feedback matters and select click here. The link to the feedback form in Spanish is right below the link to the English version. Start by putting in your email address. Next, you select the advocacy day you're giving input for. Then you respond if this is your first advocacy day or not. Next, you pick the smiley faces that answer how you feel about the virtual advocacy day. Then you submit the form. Just as simple as that. Your input helps Diana and the ARC to know what you like, what you don't like, what is helpful, and what is not helpful. You can learn about these and more ideas to get involved on our website at www.arcwa.org and click on Advocacy Days. You can also contact us at sale@arcwa.org or diana@arcwa.org if you need help. Are there any questions?
All right, that's another wrap up of Advocacy Days. I will try to see if I can address some other questions in the chat later. I know we didn't get to everyone 100% today, and I apologize. It's been a busy runaround day, so I hope you join us for the next Advocacy Days and have a great week.
Thanks
Great
everybody
week.
for being here.
You're great, Taylor.